Good afternoon, morning, whenever you guys decide to watch it. It is, let's say, Monday. Happy Monday. Hope everyone had an amazing Father's Day yesterday. For those who are dads, who are moms that are dads, who are grandparents, aunts, uncles, all the things. Thank you for supporting your family the way you do. And I apologize, Moose is playing with one of his toys, so there's going to be a little bit of that going on in the background. But my name is Caroline with Caroline's Scrumptious Sourdough, and I just wanted to do a quick little video to show you some of my favorite items that I use when I'm making sourdough. Now, obviously you need, first of all, some kind of a vessel for your starter. And so here's part of a kit that I do sell, and I'm not going over the whole kit, but this part of it, I've also used this, which I got off of Amazon. It's great too, but right now Herbert is in this because I've been baking, so he's had to grow and he's needed room to grow. So it doesn't matter if it's glass, if it's plastic, it doesn't matter, as long as it's not copper, because then that messes with the yeast. So anyway, and then to stir him, these are my favorite items. So this is the Pampered Chef Long Skinny Scraper. I'm also a consultant for Pampered Chef, so if you need that, let me know. But I love this because it allows me to get the sides. And then this is awesome because it's flexible. And I got this from either Shein or AliExpress, I don't know, but it's dishwasher safe, and so but they both are. And so these I absolutely love whenever I'm doing my stirring, or even if I have a high hydration dough. I like this because I can kind of scrape around the sides. It's awesome for that. So there's that as far as feeding him. Now the flour, which is very important, we'll just go with the basics, right? The Costco, this is my favorite, this is my go-to. This is what I use to feed Herbert. This is what I use when I'm making bread. The most important thing with your flour is the protein content. So this is actually a bread flour. I can't remember what it is, but Costco threw their label on it. And it's one of the really well-known ones. I can't remember. But it has 11.5% for the protein. And the higher the protein, the more gluten it's going to do. And what I found with the Costco flour is I need to use less water and have a lower, depending on the recipe, but like my regular loaves, lower hydration, which helps with the rise. But it all just depends on the kind of flour that you use. You can use regular all-purpose flour too. You don't have to do that. I actually did a experiment where I used the Target just all-purpose flour that they have, and it was great. They both rose about the same. I mean, there really wasn't much difference. So you can use whatever flour you want. That's the one that I use. Salt. The salt that I use is this one. I don't recommend the iodine, whatever that one is. You know, the table salt, I guess. Just, you want a higher quality salt. A lot of people use the pink Himalayan salt, which I also have too, but this is the one that I do. And then I keep my salt in this jar, and I like it because it has the spoon, which allows me to easily control how much is going into the bowl. A lot of people will pre-measure their salt in another container, that way they don't put too much in, but this is what allows me to have better control. Okay, now to stir your dough. This is what I love. It's a dough whisk. There's so many different kinds that you can have. So I also have this one that I do my einkorn with, because einkorn is a higher hydration, so stirring it is not the easiest thing. So I like this, and then there's also the mini ones that you would actually get in a kit if you were to buy one of my starter kits. So there's that. I have a whole bunch of these little mini scrapers, just a whole bunch of them, because they come in handy when you're done. I like to kind of scrape the scraper down. And then, so there's that, and then a bowl. I mean, you can use any bowl you want. This is Pamper Chef again. I love Pamper Chef. So yeah, you can use any bowl you want. You just need a bowl. And then once you've mixed it all, you need something to proof it in, right? To do that bulk ferment. You can use a colander with a towel in it. You could use a colander with a cheesecloth in it. You could even use just a bowl and put a shower cap over it. That's what I do, is the bulk ferment, I leave it in here, and then I'll put a shower cap over this. And actually my friend, she made me a cloth cover, and you know what, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna grab it. So hopefully I do this right. Please hold. I think that worked. Okay, so this is a cloth cap that can go on the bowl. So, you know, you don't have to keep on buying shower caps, things like this. It's definitely washable. So that's awesome. And then, okay, so then after you've done bulk ferment, you don't have to do cold ferment. You can shape your dough and just put it into and cook it that day. But I like to cold ferment for a few reasons. One of the benefits of sourdough is it's easier to process because the natural yeast, it helps break down the gluten. It's not gluten-free. I will never claim that. I'm not making any medical claims right now. You do your own research. But I have found for me, it's more easily digestible than commercial bread because of the commercial yeast that they use. Sourdough, as a lot of you know, is a natural yeast. And it's basically from the yeast in your environment. So if you buy a Herbert Jr. from me, and I think I've gone over this a little bit in another video, but the Herbert Jr. is going to respond differently in your environment because the natural yeast in your environment is different than mine. And so it might take a few feedings for him to go, but sometimes he's just good to go too. So there's that. So that's why I like bulk ferment. So there's a few things you can use for bulk ferment. I like these. So there's a few ways. You can take your cheesecloth and put it here, and I get a whole bunch of these off Amazon. And this is actually what you get in the kit, part of it. And you can put a little bit of flour in here, and then, you know, and then it's good to go. Or you can put a shower cap on this, put the dough in, and then put a shower cap over it. Or you can take a kitchen towel, do that, or you could do the cheesecloth and then put the shower cap. There's so many ways of doing it. The beauty of sourdough is you do what works for you. There's not just one way of doing this. And that's what I love. When I first started, it was so complicated. And everyone's like, you gotta do all these stretch and folds and all these things. As long as you're built the gluten in the bread, you're good to go. That's the purpose of the stretch and folds. So there's slap and folds, there's things like that. And I only do one set. So when I mix up my dough with the salt, flour, water, and if I'm doing inclusions, I add those in the next step. And then I let it rest for about 30-ish minutes to an hour, depending on what I got going on in my life. And then I add in my inclusions if I have any, and then I do my basically slap and folds and coil folds and all the things while I'm building the gluten. And that's it. I don't come back and do a whole bunch of stretch and folds. Now, if that works for you, then good, do it. For me and my timeline, it doesn't work for me. So again, do what works for you. And that's just the fun of it, is learning what does work for you. Okay, so you can use something like this to bulk ferment. You can use, I got this from Dollar Tree, and it has a lid, which is awesome. Now, keep in mind, if you're going to use plastic, you can't put, I mean, you could, but it's not going to work very well. You can't put a whole bunch of these in the fridge because these hold heat a lot more than something like this. and that could cause it to over ferment and become, you know, over fermented, which is not necessarily a bad thing either, honestly, because bread still tastes amazing, and that's really, to me, what matters. You can also use something like this. I got this off of, again, either Shein or AliExpress, I can't remember which one. Or I got this from the dollar store. In the desk items, you know, like where desk organization. And so what I end up doing is I do end up putting a shower cap in here so that the dough doesn't get stuck in these holes. I could also put the cheesecloth in there too instead of the shower cap. And then I'll put a shower cap over this. Now this is when I'm doing like my loaf shape, because I don't want to put my, not that it's going to hurt it because I can just put this straight in there cold, but I don't want to put this in the fridge and then bake in it cold. It's stone, so it should be okay, honestly. I don't know, I should read the instructions, but it's Pamper Chef too. But we'll get to that in a minute. So again, the baking or the bulk ferment vessels, there's so many different ways you can just, again, just use a colander with a towel in it. There's no need to go out and buy all these things. Just use what you have. That's the beauty of it. And then comment below if you have questions on it. That's what I'm here for. I'm happy to help. So you've done your bulk ferment. You're good to go. Now you need to bake your bread, right? So I use parchment paper, and I forgot to pull it down, but this is from Costco. And so I'll put the bread on top of a sling, which I put these on first. And I put these down, I put the parchment paper down, I put a little flour on the parchment paper, and then I'll put the bread on the parchment paper. Once you have your bread down, you'll need to score your loaf. And I forgot to grab that too. I like this thing. It's a razor blade. For one, it's retractable, you know, so that I can do that. And then if I want it just a little bit, so I can do like fine designs, which I almost never do, I can do that. Otherwise, I like this because as you're going, you know, it's longer. And so I like that. But in my kit, now let me think of where I put the one, this one. So this is what you're actually going to get, one of these, not this one, in the kit. And so this is great because you have 3 different settings that you could do. You could do it towards really short, and then medium, and then tall. So depending on how you want to do your design. But you have to score the bread. The purpose of scoring the bread is to allow those gases to help it rise. If you don't score your bread, then it's going to come out somewhere and it might look funky. But it doesn't matter because it'll taste good. So that's what matters. And so you've scored your bread and you're ready to put it in the oven, well, your baking vessel. You can open bake if you know how to do that. I've tried it. I'm not very good, so I still am trying to get that. One of the most important things with oven spring is steam. You need to create steam. So what I do is I have a mini cast iron pan that I put in the oven while my oven is preheating. And I preheat the oven for anywhere from, you know, 400 to 415-ish, something like that. My oven is weird, so I'll put the dial at 400, but sometimes it goes up to like 415 even though it's set to 400. But anyway, but I'll leave this in there, that way it's hot. And then in the bottom rack, and then there's a few baking vessels. And just so you know, just so I don't lose my train of thought, after I've put everything in the oven, then I'll put some ice in that mini cast iron, and that what helps create steam. Now, what do you bake in, right? There's so many different things that you can bake your bread in. You can use just a loaf pan and just do it that way. I've seen a lot of people who do double. They take another loaf pan and you put it on top, and that helps create kind of like a Dutch oven type of thing. And a lot of people have had good success. Again, do what works for you. You can also get something like this. It's super light, super thin. So these, you either need to put a, you need to put them on a cookie sheet so that the bottom of your bread doesn't burn. Or they sell stuff like this, where you put this in the bottom, and this is kind of made out of the same stuff, but you just kind of put it in the bottom, you know, and then you put everything in, put the lid on, and these you can add some ice cubes in them, and it won't hurt it. But you just add that, and that helps create steam too, which helps with the rice. And another one you can use, so if you're preheating your oven, first of all, you don't have to preheat your oven. You can take a cold vessel, you know, because this type of thing you're not going to preheat. It wouldn't do well. So you can take a cold vessel with a cold oven, throw it in, turn on the oven to about 400-ish, leave it in there with the lid on for about 45 minutes. And then come back, look at it, make sure it's good to go, take off the lid and brown it. But again, do your research. You have to figure out your oven because every oven is different. And then here's my cast iron, my Dutch oven that has been very well loved and very well used with my bread. And again, that's Pampered Chef. You can also use glass. The important thing is to find out what the heat rating is for your vessel, which a lot of them can go to like 350, 400, things like that. A lot of recipes say to preheat your oven to 500 with the vessel in there and all these things. I don't ever bake that high anymore. Yeah, it can help with your oven spring, but I don't find it's necessary, and so I just don't. But so this one is heat safe up to 450, and so again, you just need to learn your vessel and know what the heat safe on it is. So there's that. And then what I also do is I just have purified water in here, and I'll spray the top of the loaf, put on the lid, and then put it in. And then I'll also spray the oven to help create the steam, even though the ice cubes in that mini cast iron pan is already creating steam for me. But steam is awesome, and that's what helps with the oven spraying. And then one of my most favorite things, which I love a good scale. I was using the Pampered Chef scale forever, but it's not meant for commercial use, and so I think I kind of worked it too much. I don't know, but we've had it since 2020, so she's done good. But a good kitchen scale, you don't have to use a scale, but in my experience, for me anyway, I found that my bread turns out way better if I'm using a scale than like cups. And so again, that's just what works for me. Everyone is different. Once you've stored your bread, or once you've made your bread, what do you store it in, right? So my friend Jen, who makes the shower cap, she also made me a bread bag. And I can't, I'm so excited. It has puppies on it, puppy paw. Anyway, and so you can use something like this. It's just cloth. You can use that. You can use, I have the bread bags. You can use a Ziploc bag. Whenever you buy bread from me, you get it in a paper bag. You can just leave it in that. The important thing is, if you haven't eaten it all within 3 days, I'd recommend you slice it, put parchment paper in the middle of each slice, and put it in the freezer. That way it keeps the freshness. And so let me grab, and again, I keep walking away. Here is a loaf that my husband and I are eating, and so if you can see, it has parchment paper in between each slice. So that's what I did, is I sliced it, and then that brings me to the importance of a good bread knife. So I have this one, which was Cutco, and it's sharp and amazing. But I also have the Pamper Chef bread knife as well. They're both awesome. They both do great. When my bread is the crust is a little bit firmer, the Cutco one is the one that I really go to because of how it is. But when it's softer, then I really like my Pampered Chef one. So I think I've covered everything from, you know, storing the starter, mixing the starter, and then the bulk ferment, excuse me, and then the vessel for cold ferment, what you can cook them in, bake them in, the importance of steam, super important, and then what to store it in after it's done. And fun fact too, with scoring, a lot of people, what they do is they'll score it, and then about 5 to 7 minutes into baking, they'll go and they'll score it again, and that kind of helps it open up a little more. I haven't tried it yet. I know I need to, just to kind of see what it does. Maybe that's what'll work for me too. I don't know. But the moral of the story is, do what works for you, and learn your oven, and just kind of use what you have. But comment below what you use for anything. If you have questions, concerns, I'm happy to help. That's what I'm here for. But thanks for taking this time with me. I know it's kind of a longer video. And yeah, there it is. Be safe, make good choices, and we will see you soon. See ya!